TANK by IDLES. So yeah, this is my selection. The fifth album from post punk um, Bristol band IDLES, who I've been aware of since kind of the beginning. First of all, because I was going to Reading Festival when I saw their name on there, did my usual thing of sort of researching who's on the lineup, and that was their Mary Berry track. um, yeah, uh, thanks. I think that is that what it's called, or no, good luck. I think it is. But anyway, the one where Mary Berry can do everything, and it's kind of quite quirky lyrics. And I thought, okay, this could be an interesting band to see. I went and saw them in one of the tents at Reading Festival, and they were just sensational. I love those moments at festivals where you kind of might know one or two tracks of the band. You think they're interesting enough that I think live they might be good, and then you go and you're just blown away. And that was one of those moments. I think maybe it was 2017. It was that I saw them then, just around the start of their discography. Yeah, with their first album, which was after the death of Joe Talbot, the singer's mum, who had been looking after in a caring capacity, and is quite. There's a visceral listen. I think that's as stark as it gets for IDLES. Although across all five of their albums, you do get those moments. And then from there, I think the second album, Joy is an Act of Resistance, their best by far. I think that was the one where they really sort of broke through and found some really interesting ways of confronting modern issues, and particularly the post-Brexit landscape in this country, which, yeah, not the happiest, or you're not most united of kingdoms since then, or even beforehand. And then Ultra Mono, which seems to be the one where you either sort of stayed with them or decided that they'd become a bit of a pastiche of a band. And then the turning point was Crawler, their fourth record, where they decided to move away from that more harsh post-punk aesthetic and actually delve into more musicality, which then continues on TANK. And Crawler I enjoyed, but TANK for me is them sort of realizing that this ambition to find a new skin, as it were, and shed that old one. And quite a soft listen across a lot of them. I actually wasn't blown away by the singles, because to me they sounded like typical IDLES tracks, and I was worried that I was going to get something which I'd already heard before. But actually, I was really surprised, and pleasantly so, by the amount of imagination shown here, and just going from different genres even across the tracks, whilst also delivering some of their catchiest numbers, which are just recognisably IDLES. No other band could do that sort of thing, which they do in their own inimitable way, love it or hate it. So for me, this is just right up there as an album. It's probably clear, quite a big fan of theirs, so going with a fair bit of potential bias, but bias, that didn't do much for Tyson Goal last month. So I like to think I'm fair as well. And yeah, I think just as a few highlights, I think a Gospel, I think they're probably one of the most affecting tracks they've ever written. Beautiful piano. It sits right in the center of this album, and I think they really deliver something which is really tender, which is not something you would often associate with IDLES. Hall & Oates, 2 minutes, punky blast, could be off a Hives album, but that was a nice gear change, because there's not loads of that on this album. And Pop Pop Pop, I also really enjoyed. I thought it sounded like Joe Talbot fronting Aphex Twin. They just go for something quite different in electronic here, which is probably where you get the Radiohead influence, and then that's probably with the producer who's helping him out here, which has been referred to in quite a few reviews as well. But I mean, with perhaps the exception of Monolith, the last track, which was a bit of a damp squib, and this album, it for me, is at a high level, stays at that high level throughout, and probably quite clear that I very much enjoyed it. So who would like to burst my bubble or or agree? Who would like to go next?
You go, Karl.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, so I've always enjoyed Idles output without being. I sort of see myself as enjoying their output without being like a massive fan. As I know, obviously yourself, Andrew, and quite a few people this side of the pond are. They seem to have very quickly become like one of the best loved alternative bands over here. Obviously TANGK getting is it their first UK number one or second? Or not, it went number one anyway.
Probably.
I'm not sure if it was their first or whether one of their others has, but yeah, obviously going to number one, which was kind of shows their popularity over here. But yeah, like most, I imagine, came in on Joy as an Act of Resistance was the one that I came in on, which is still my favourite record of theirs. Ultra Mono, as you say, Andrew, I struggled with. But then Crawler, I liked the direction they were stepping in. And as you say, I think that record definitely laid the foundation for this album. If that was them kind of dipping their toes into this more melodic sound, then TANGK is them like, fully submersing themselves in it. And yeah, like you say, I think they do really pull it off. I think although it's quite different to Joy, and does maybe in places lack the fire and energy of that record, I think it is easily my favourite of theirs since that album. Obviously you mentioned produced by Nigel Godrich, which isn't surprising listening to it. You can definitely hear the similarities to Radiohead coming through at points. And as you say, it's just very solid throughout. Idea One is like it's a similar kind of intro I found to what is it, MTT 420 RR from the opening track to Crawler. It's kind of got that ominous sense that something is brewing with those like raindrop like piano keys that come in. And where that track on Crawler, I think the lyrics were kind of talking about a storm coming. This one, it's almost like a fire rise. He's singing about a fire, so it's like a fire slowly rising up. But like the general vibe of those two tracks, I found quite similar. And then Gift Horse just comes crashing in, and it's, as you say, classic Idles. Those static, shock-like guitars, Talbot's, rough and roll vocals coming in. I think I enjoyed it as a single, but I think as a way to properly kickstart the album, I think I love it even more in the context of the track list here. And just while we're on the track list, I'd say that would be my one criticism of the album for me, is probably the sequencing. Obviously, I mentioned the energy of an album like Joy, and I think the thing that just slightly lets this one down for me is the fact that after Gift Horse, it then kind of sits into first gear for a couple of tracks. I really like Pop Pop Pop, Roy, a Gospel, but I feel like those three together just kills the momentum that they kind of get slightly on that one. So I think if it was me, I would maybe move, a track like a Gospel to the back end and maybe bring forward a track like a Jungle or a Hall and Oates. I think as it stands, that's my one kind of gripe, as it were, was I think the flow of the record could just be that little bit better. For me, there's too many of like the more subdued tracks up front, and maybe the faster, louder tracks too weighted towards the back end. But yeah, I mean, that aside, there's no denying the high points that are here. Mentioned Roy just there, but absolutely love that track. The way it kind of rumbles to the swell of Joe Talbot belting out that baby, baby, baby refrain is just fantastic. Dancer with LCD, one of my favourite singles of last year. Still enjoy it here. That great bass line going on, catchy chorus, great video as well for that song. Hall and Oates, you mentioned, just absolutely rambunctious, fantastic central riff. Jungle, really theatrical nature to it. And then you mentioned you weren't a fan of Monolith. I actually thought that was quite like almost like a epilogue, a nice epilogue to the album, quite a haunting ending to the whole thing with the, you know, the way that saxophone kind of like comes in just at the end of that track. It reminded me a bit of, in terms of the vibe of it, like Joy Division's Atmosphere. Kind of got that vibe from that song. But yeah, I'd say that was my only minor complaint, is the maybe switch the track list around a bit, just so the album keeps the momentum up. More similar to like the previous efforts. But that aside, you know, you kind of mentioned it, and Andrew, plenty of high points, plenty of career best moments on this one. Love the direction that they took. As you say, they could have easily stayed in that post-punk lane, but I'm always up for a band, you know, pushing their boundaries, and I feel like they've experimented with something new. And as a result, this one puts forward like a more nuanced, accomplished sound.
An accomplished experiment for you, Kiley?
I will say, I think I enjoy this one the most since Joy as an Act of Resistance. But yeah, for me, you know, Idols are also really big here too. I think, you know, most people that listen to rock music are going to know who Idols are. I mean, even Grammy nominated. Wow. But anyway, I think they suffer from, you know, having two amazing, the debut and the follow up, and kind of writing that post punk, even though Joe Talbot says they're not post punk, but writing that post punk wave when I think the revival was still fresh and, you know, appealing for my listenership. But yeah, same thing. Like Ultra Mono was my fall off, and I don't know if it was wrong place or wrong time, but I didn't enjoy Crawler either. So yeah, I was excited about this one though, mostly because I know we had the disagreement in the WhatsApp, but I loved Grace as a single, and I thought it was enjoyed it as a sign of things to come, and like trying those new things. And you know, while it is classic Idols, I thought Gift Horse was a fantastic single as well. The one that just I still can't get into, going to disagree on, is Dancer. It just, I don't know. I love the bass, like you said, on it, but the rest of it, I don't know. It doesn't. Another one, LCD Sound System, an all-time favorite that lately just has not been exciting me. So that combination, just, I guess, coming maybe a few years too late for me to truly get worked up about it. But yeah, I'm with you. I think it is the sequencing on this album that, you know, for it to be a classic album, it's got a flow, right? And this entire album feels, you know, start stop, and just, for me, drags in a lot of areas. Roy, just for some reason, just feels like it's always going. That one I could not get into, and same thing with Jungle on the back end of the album. Just, I've tried, and every time they come on shuffle, I am skipping through those. I think in the end, I appreciate the growth here for Idols. I appreciate the experimentation, but listening to this a number of times, is it an Idols record or is it a Nigel Godrich record? Because I mean, this is so blatantly. I think he's a fantastic producer, but the changes that you hear for them sonically on this record are all kind of Nigel Godrich signature moves. We got more tape loops. And I don't know. It's just, it's kind of the same conversation we had about the Smile last month, where I enjoy a lot of Nigel Godrich's work with, you know, Tom York and Johnny Greenwood over the years, but there's just these moments, especially as his producing career moves on, that I just, needs something a little more happening. And I think Tank falls victim to that. So you know I didn't love this record, but Idols is just something that hasn't done it for me in a few years. So I think that there still is that feeling towards them, but I at least appreciated hearing something different with this record, even if it didn't fully connect with me.
Mixed reviews. So yeah, we can't always have the same, and yeah, it would be boring if we all just said, "Yep, agree." So yeah, so some yeah, always good to get other points of view on something which you might love as well. And yeah, I think that's a debate worthy question. Is this a Nigel Godrich record or is this an Idols record? I'm not sure we'd get some very interesting comments on that one. You can definitely hear that come across in the album for sure.